Hey guys, what's going on? It's Nathan from Tattooing 101, and I got some awesome news. We're bringing out our first Realism tattooing seminar. We've teamed up with an awesome artist, Patrick Dumond, in order to bring this out. And it's going to be coming out in a couple of days. And leading up to that, we've put together a couple of little Realism tutorials just to give you a bit of a grasp on the fundamentals of tattooing in this style, so that when the seminar does drop, you can get the absolute most out of it. You can hit the ground running because you've already got a lot of the basics down. So first off, we're going to start with how to do a realistic stencil in less than 2 minutes. Now, back in the day, it used to take at least an hour to do a realistic stencil. And that's if you were doing like a small, realistic tattoo. You would have to print out the image of the tattoo. You'd have to trace. You'd get on top of a hand-drawn piece of stencil paper. You'd have to trace all of the facial features, the contours, and the shading and stuff like that. And if the client wanted a different size, or he needed to have it at a different size, or they wanted a different spot on their body, then you would have to start all over again. And, before you know it, half the day is gone. You haven't even started the tattoo yet. And it was even worse if you're doing like a large back piece or something like that. It would take even longer. And sometimes you'd even need multiple artists to help put the stencil together in order to just get the thing on and get it all done in one day, or at least, gray line it so that you could finish it off in multiple sessions. The reason I know this is because as an apprentice, I did a lot of stencils for my mentor back in the day, because he did a lot of large scale realism stuff. So the method that I'm about to show you to do a stencil really quickly, thankfully, Procreate has made this process a lot easier. You can do it in less than 2 minutes. The way that I'm about to show you, it's fast. It won't get you quite as high quality of a stencil as the way that Patrick does it in the seminar that's going to be dropping in a few days. But if you're in a bit of a rush and just need to get something out super quick, then this is a really good way to do it. And it also works if you just want to draw realism, like if you want to do some digital art and practice realism on your iPad, then this is a really good way to get the foundations down for that as well. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it, and I'll show you how to make a realistic stencil in less than 2 minutes. So you can see on my screen here, I've got just a picture of a very basic flower, and right next to it, that's the finished product, what the stencil is going to look like. Very dark, so once I put that through the stencil printer, all of these little black spots are going to come out in the carbon. I'll stick that on the client, and then I know exactly where all my tones and stuff are supposed to go. I can't tell the full story of the tattoo just by looking at the stencil. I will need to look at my reference. Some of this image is a little bit confusing, like especially kind of when you get up to these parts. So having the reference next to you at all times is going to help you out a lot. Real quick, I'm going to show you how to achieve this for yourself. So all you've got to do, we're just going to start from the beginning again. And this is the rose that we're working with. We're going to turn this to black and gray. So we're going to go up to the little magic wand icon. We're going to go to hue, saturation, and brightness. We're going to go down to saturation, and we're going to turn that all the way down. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to bump up the contrast. So whenever you are tattooing realism, you always want to increase the contrast, because it's going to make the tattoo age a lot better. The black's going to be a lot darker, and it's going to be a lot more skin tone in the tattoo. And it's just going to look better over time. So we're going to go to curves, and we're going to bring this bottom one to this line down here. And then we're going to bring this top one up to this line here. Yeah, you can see how the contrast changes pretty dramatically once you've got those two curves in place. Makes the whites a lot brighter, the blacks a lot blacker, and it gives the tattoo a lot more definition. It's going to make it a lot easier to do. So now they've got that, we're going to duplicate it. We're going to move this second one over to here. So the one on the left is going to be our reference, and the one on the right is going to be our stencil. So I'm going to get rid of a bunch of the stuff that I don't actually need in this tattoo. So it's just going to save, putting a bunch of carbon on the person when the stencil goes through. And if you need to, adjust the stencil, then it's going to make it a lot easier, because you're not going to have to spend, 5 or 10 minutes just rubbing all this purple off of your client. So the more of the background that you can get rid of without touching the petals within, the better it's going to be. So spend, a minute or two working on that. And then you should have like quite a clean line all around the outside. So there's minimal wasted carbon kind of going on the, or there's minimal extra carbon going on the client's skin. Great, so that's looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is duplicate that layer, and on the top layer, you can see how if I click on the layer, then a bunch of options going to appear, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is that if you click on this N, then you'll have another bunch of options that appear. So you want to go down to color dodge, and then we want to click on that same layer. You can see how the rest of the layers are normal, but this one has color dodge written just here, so that we know that that's been applied. We click on the layer, now we want to invert it. So right now it's almost invisible, and we just want to go up to Gaussian blur, and we move this across. And you can see as you move it across, the stencil kind of starts to appear, which is exactly what we want. If you go too far, then it just comes a regular image, so you want to have it pretty low. Right about there. And now, if we're going to be putting this onto a client's skin, we want this to be as dark as possible. So we're going to hit the curves again. Sorry, before that, we're going to merge these two layers together on the right, and then we're going to go to curves again, and we want to make this darker. So that we have like a real obvious kind of stencil. And that's just going to make it a lot easier to see. So this is great for when you are putting the stencil on someone's skin. But if you want to use this for digital drawing and practicing realism on your iPad, then you don't want it to be that dark, because any shading that you put over the top of it, you're just not going to see it. So this is great for skin. Once we've got that, if we want to use it for just drawing on the iPad, all we have to do then is, once we've got like that really nice and dark kind of grainy stencil, we will just turn down the opacity. So we still have the contrast, but it's just not as dark, so that when we put shading over the top of it, it's going to overpower the stencil underneath, so you're not going to see that shine through. Yeah, cool. So now when we put shading over the top of it, so for example, if we're just going to do like a simple black and gray kind of portrait, I'll probably use a hard airbrush or a medium airbrush. Turn the size down on that, do it on a new layer. Again, turn the opacity down. You want to turn pressure sensitivity on. And you can just lightly build up your tones. And you can see how it completely covers the stencil underneath. So then you would be able to draw over the top of it and create your own realistic artwork and practice realism on your iPad before you move on to tattooing it on skin. So that's all for this one, guys. If you've got any questions about doing realism stencils or anything like that, please pop them in the comments down below this video. Let's get the conversation going. Me and Brandon are going to be checking these and responding to you guys. So if you have any questions, we're here to help you out. And yeah, thanks for watching. Keep an eye on your inbox. There's going to be another tutorial coming out tomorrow. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.